Hello, I'm so excited today to be chatting with Becker and Shannah Seyfert of Penfield Children's Center. We'll be talking about all things related to young children and early intervention, just to give parents some pointers for figuring out if their child is developing on track and who to reach out to if they have concerns. What do you think are some of the greatest needs of really young children, and how can parents kind of support and facilitate their little ones as they grow?
Research is showing that the time between the ages of birth and three is a rapid period of brain development. And that's when billions of neurons are connecting and impacting that child's future projection and their development. We focus at this early age on healthy relationships. We feel that's the foundation of this child's brain development and skills. So children really benefit from protection from harm, a sense of security, opportunities for early learning, and responsive caregiving. We really encourage families and parents to make connections, form relationships, keep kids safe, both physically, mentally, and emotionally, and provide early learning experiences, talking, singing, playing.
I love how you describe all of those things, all of that development and skills with young children as emerging through the context of healthy relationships. And I think that's a great reminder for parents that just by talking, nurturing, supporting, and as you said, protecting your child, you're doing all the right things that really do set them up for success later in life. I think oftentimes parents are anxious that they need to be doing more or doing different things, but sometimes it's doing the same old things with a little more patience and intention and calm spirit. So, Shanna, can you tell us a bit about the Birth to Three program in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Wisconsin, the Birth to Three program uses a service delivery model called primary coach to teaming, which is a really long name that essentially means your family will be assigned a service coordinator and then a primary coach. That primary coach may be an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, a speech therapist, an educator, or even a social worker. And really, they're going to be the ones working with your family to determine what your goals and outcomes are for your child. They come alongside the family and support them as much or as little as they need. Services are all home-based or in the child's natural environment. So if they spend time at a childcare center, we can go there. But really, the primary service provider is looking at how they can effectively weave therapy into the part of the family's routine so that it's not this extra thing that a family has to do every day.
I love that idea of the services happening to the extent that's possible in the home, because it just seems like it would be so much more comfortable for the child to be in familiar space with their toys and their things.
Absolutely. And it really gets to that functional therapy, right? If the family has stairs and we need them to go up and down the stairs, what better practice than their own stairs?
And how do people get connected with a program like yours?
There are several ways. Anyone can make a referral to the Birth to Three program. It's a voluntary program. So we get referrals from physicians' offices, parents, childcare centers. All of those referrals are made to Milwaukee County directly. And that can be done on their website or also via phone or fax.
So if a parent is spending time with their child and they start to sense that there may be an issue, perhaps with something like speech development or language issue, they could raise their hands on their own and go to the website and complete a form for the opportunity to learn more about the program.
Absolutely. Yep. We always encourage parents to have that conversation with your physician if you are having concerns, but a physician does not need to make a referral to the Birth to Three program.
And then is there some sort of screening or assessment that takes place before people are formally admitted, or anyone who wants to participate can participate?
Yeah, so we get the referral from Milwaukee County, and it has some basic information on it, and then there's an entire process that the family goes through before we know if the child does qualify for the program or not. But in a nutshell, a service coordinator is assigned right away, calls the family, does an interview, phone interview, gathering the family's strengths and areas of concern and goals of the family. A team of people, and it could be anybody off of the team that Shannah described earlier. So OT, PT, speech therapist, special educator, and our service coordinators. So 2 or 3 of those disciplines would, based on what the family has identified as their needs, will assess the child. So they do a formal assessment and then determine if there's a developmental delay. So a child does need to qualify a number of ways, either have a 25% delay in development in one area or more, have a diagnosed condition, say, for example, Down syndrome, which we know would result in a developmental delay, or if there's something atypical going on, say they do not demonstrate on the test any 25% delay, they don't have a diagnosed condition, but then something atypical is happening, then they still could qualify for the Birth to 3 program. And then after that, we have a meeting with the parent, develop an IFSP, which is an individual family service plan, and map out, what's going to happen here. What are your child's strengths? What are your child's areas of need? What are your goals? How are we going to help you? It goes down to really a plan for the next 6 months so that the family is getting their needs met and that we're all very clear on the progression of services.
Is it often that people reach out and think their child has a delay and the child doesn't? It's just the parent is concerned, but the diagnosis or assessments don't reveal a major issue.
It certainly happens in those instances, though. I think it's definitely in the parents' best interest, if they have concerns, to see that through and get the evaluation. And if they don't qualify for services, that's great.
So it's just more information. I always try to encourage parents, if you're feeling something, to write it down, take note of it, write the things you're seeing or hearing and the date. And so you have that base level of information for when you have conversations with pediatricians or others. But I really like the idea of it's okay as a parent to honor that feeling that you have and to take the next steps.
Absolutely.
We always say parents know their children the best. We get to see them maybe an hour or 2 a week. And parents are with their kids all the time. I encourage use your intuition. And if you do have concerns, follow through on them. And we do not mind at all. It's the best case scenario if we evaluate a child and realize that they do not have any delays or we don't have any concerns. It's good news for all.
A word that you mentioned a couple of times when you were speaking earlier is strengths. And so that was a word that I wasn't expecting to hear as much as I have in a conversation about developmental delays or challenges. But you've mentioned both in the context of gathering the family strengths, but also gathering the child. So why is it so important to emphasize the strengths and notice those as well?
You're right. We don't focus so much on the deficits or the areas of need as the strength because families have a lot of strengths, whether they realize it or not. And that's what's going to best help that child grow and develop. The family has the biggest impact on that child. So we look at the context of their environment, what they're working on, and how can we build off of that. Every child has abilities, whether they're on track for their age or not, they have abilities. And so we start there, and then we build on those abilities. We start at what they can do and then aim to shoot even higher.
Can you tell me more about the team of people who support families? So you mentioned occupational therapy and physical therapy, and typically there are 2 or 3 different kinds of people who may be of support to a family, but there's one primary contact.
The family has full access to a team of early interventionists, and those interventionists are by background a physical therapist, occupational therapist, speech therapist, an educator, and then service coordinators and social workers. So what happens is when we get a referral, we're working with that family to determine what areas of concern they have for their child. Again, what strengths the child has, what strengths the family has. And then we're looking to provide who we feel is the best fit in regard to primary service provider to be that point of contact for the family and provide resources in child development, but also maybe in speech therapy if they're a speech therapist. However, that family always has access through direct or indirect coaching to the full team. For instance, if the primary service provider is a physical therapist and mom or dad have concerns about language development, that can be asked during our team meeting. Mom and dad could actually join the team meeting if they'd like, ask their question. or the primary service provider can take it back to the team and present the question and get some coaching themselves, and then try that with the family at their next session.
And it's the primary interaction between the family and the team in person and home visit setting, or is it phone, or how exactly do the families communicate with their team, their primary contact?
Yeah, their primary service provider is going to be the one going out to wherever the child spends the majority of their day. So in the home or at childcare center. And then they will be that point of contact and kind of liaison between the rest of the team. If they need coaching or the family feels like they need coaching in another area, the primary service provider sets that up, and that can look different. It could be somebody coming alongside the service provider out to the home and doing some direct coaching, or it could be through a team meeting.
And you use the word coaching. So is there an element of parent education as well as opposed to just direct work with the child?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the foundation of the model, is that really research has found that skilled interventionists are only in the home for maybe 45 minutes every other week, but to really focus on having the family be comfortable with the strategies and weaving them into their everyday routine so that it's not a chore. So that again requires the family to feel comfortable with what's being worked on or what's being addressed. So often during sessions, there is a component of direct treatment, but then there's also a lot of time where the family can practice and really feel confident and competent when the provider leaves, that they can carry through what they've been working on.
I know there is a diverse array of challenges that children might have that these different teams meet, but is there a typical length of the program, or how long, if an issue is diagnosed at 6 months, does the program continue until that child is 3, or is there some other criteria for stopping and starting services?
Kids stay in the program until they're age 3. They're eligible to stay in the program. However, if the delays are remediated and the child really isn't demonstrating any other delays, they could graduate early, but it is the day before their 3rd birthday is when done in the program. We also work starting at 9 months before that child turns 3. We work with the family on transitioning. So children transition out of birth to 3 and into the public school systems into their early childhood program. And we are there right along with them for the last 9 months that they could be in our program. So we try to work on a smooth transition with the same amount of support from the public schools as they get in the birth to 3 program.
And I know that the idea is to intervene early because the sooner you recognize an issue, the sooner you can support the child and the family and start working on it. But are people coming in with very young babies, or are you typically serving kids who are 1 to 3 or 2 to 3?
We see young babies frequently. So sometimes it can be because of a diagnosed condition that was identified early. Sometimes because of prematurity, they're being referred to birth to 3 right from an NICU. Sometimes it could be just a family's concern, but we do get a lot of little ones.
Is there a cost associated with the birth to 3 program?
There is not a cost. Some families may have a cost share, but it is income based.
It's wonderful to know that parents have such ready access to this array of support and services in their local community. And can you describe some of some of the specific delays that might be happening with a child that parents should be aware of or maybe on the lookout for?
Yeah, there are a lot of different delays, and it can be something mild, like just a developmental delay. It could also be a diagnosed condition, and some of those conditions are diagnosed even prenatally or right after birth. So that could be something like Down syndrome or cerebral palsy or something like that. And then again, it could just be that maybe the family's noticing that the neighbor child is talking more than my child, and I'm really concerned about it. So it's a really wide mix.
It's hard to pinpoint any specific diagnosis or problem to look for, but something that we hear often is our baby was doing this and then they stopped. So that's another red flag to look for, is any kind of stopping of developmental progression.
With developmental delays, do you recommend that parents pay attention to or read the various lists of milestones and things that are put out by the CDC? Is it important for parents to be familiar with those things and to get a feel for where their child may be relative to those standards or guidelines?
I think it is important. And I think you mentioned the CDC website, and that is one that we would recommend. So, speaking with their pediatricians, we know that pediatricians screen the kids at all visits. So, go to those visits. We want to make sure that the parents are taking their babies in for their well child checks. And then to look on the web for resources, but reputable sites. The CDC is a reputable site. Also, 0 to 3 is another excellent resource for families with young kids.
And beyond the pediatrician and those guidelines, typically is it the more informal comparison of siblings or comparison of your child to other kids as where parents are getting their sense that something may be off?
I think that happens. I caution families to know that all children develop at different paces, and just because an older sibling did something at an early age doesn't necessarily indicate that there's a concern. But again, that's really valuable information that the parent has and can definitely take it to the pediatrician for exploration.
So the point of referencing those guidelines is not for the parent to try to make a diagnosis or to generate anxiety, but it's just to have that base level of reference information that can then inform a conversation with a pediatrician or a specialist of some sort. Is there anything I haven't asked that you think is important to mention just about the value of early intervention or about the specific services and programs that you offer?
I think one thing I want to also just bring up briefly is to make sure moms are getting prenatal care. And again, science is telling us that good prenatal care and reducing the level of toxic stress during pregnancy will also help with the trajectory and the decreasing of kids with delays as they are born, and they'll have a healthy birth. And so I just don't want to forget about the moms and how important it is for them to take care of themselves as well.
I love that. Thank you for that reminder.